Jessamine County Public Library and the Nature Reliance School present Vital Survival, a 12-part series that will cover the essential knowledge and skills you need to be prepared for disaster and emergency situations. In Lesson 6, Craig talks about how to create a safe shelter outdoors and maintain a proper body temperature in various weather conditions. If you are interested in exploring this topic further, check out these resources available at JCPL. Stay tuned after the lesson to learn how you can be entered to win one of Craig Caudill's books.
Hey, so in lesson number 6, what we're going to be doing is considering shelter and body warmth when we're out here on the move. We've gone hiking, we're in a situation where we had to leave home. How do we take care of our core body temperature in a situation like this? Our first shelter is what we wear on our body. That's our clothes. And the big thing that comes into any time that you're going to develop shelter, whether it's your clothing or a shelter you're going to build, is you need to maintain your core body temperature. That means in a wintertime environment, you definitely want to stay dry and warm, obviously, right? And you want to cool off and stay moist in the summertime. The reason for this is that moisture that is on your body, sweat, for example, helps cool you off. That's not a good thing in the wintertime, but it's a great thing in the summertime. So let's talk about some clothing choices as it relates to you keeping your core body temperature maintained properly. As far as shelter building out here, if you could take something with you, it would be some sort of rope or cordage and a really good tarp. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you how to tie some very simple to tie, but very useful knots. Then we're going to set up a couple of shelters, show you how to do that with stakes and all the stuff that makes it bomb-proof. And then I'm going to show you, if you're caught out here and you don't have anything, what kind of things can you utilize for a shelter. Now I've got a real fancy rope here. You don't have to have that. I have this so it's easy for you to see on camera what I'm doing. Let's go over this tree and I'll show you how to tie this first knot. Actually, this first knot's what's referred to as a hitch. So you take your rope, wrap it around a tree or something like this, a pole. Take this end, stick it down through that hole. Now this is important. Pull those two apart. Now take that end again, under, down through that hole, pull those two apart, and then cinch that up. The beautiful thing about this is it cinches up really well to hold a tarp, but when you let go and take the tension off, it's pretty easy to untie. All right, so let's go over. I've got a ridge line already set up for us for this one. But this knot is called a Prusik knot, and I have a small piece of cordage. It's important when you do this one that the piece of cordage or string or rope that you're using is smaller than the one you're tying it to. So you make a loop, lay that loop on top of your rope, and then you take the other ends through the center of it once, twice, 3 times. Once you have it through there 3 times, you want to get all this straightened up. It's what's called dressing the knot. Basically, you want it to look pretty. And you want all of these pieces to be parallel. You don't want pieces on here wrapped over and laying on top of one another like that. You definitely want these pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down through there, to be parallel. The beauty of this knot, watch this, you're going to love this, is that when I've got it like this, the Prusik will slide on that rope. But as soon as I pull tension on it, from here, it locks onto it and won't slide at all. I can hang my whole body off of that. And then again, if I take the tension off of it, dress up the knot a little bit, it slides again. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take our setup. We'll go find us a couple trees. I'll tell you the important things about setting up a shelter that are vitally important. We'll set all this up again with a tarp and I'll show you how to make a really nice shelter. Now the most important part about setting up a shelter is where to set it up. And here's how I remember how to do it. Look up, look down, look left, and look right. The reason we're going to do that is for looking up, we want to make sure there's nothing above us that could fall. That could be a tree that's dead that could fall over on us. That could be a branch that's above us. That could be anything that is above us. And I also like to make sure that there's not a nesting animal above me too. A lot of times nesting animals will make a lot of noises at night and it'll keep you up. They probably won't harm you, but they'll probably keep you up and you won't get very good sleep. This is a perfect example right here. This tree right here is a small one, but it's dead. So if I set up the shelter in this area, then maybe if the wind blows or maybe something like that happens, then that falls on you in the middle of the night. You don't want to do that. So we're going to walk around, we'll find something that looks good above, and then I'll tell you what I mean by looking down. This is a pretty good spot. Let me tell you a couple of reasons why above me is a good spot. Number one, I've looked around, all these trees right here are alive. There's no risk of them falling on me. Number two, there's a lot of leaves directly above me, so if it rains, the leaves are going to shed a lot of water away from me. So even if I didn't have a tarp, this would be a pretty good spot to set up. But because I have these two trees that are close together, we're going to set that ridge line up, and I'll show you how to build a nice shelter right here. Hey, before we get that ridge line and the tarp set up, let's think about why we look down. This is another good opportunity right here to make sure that we're in the right spot. In this area, I've got a bunch of sticks. I'm going to remove all those sticks, but I'm going to leave the leaves. I'll explain that in just a minute. But if you look right over here, this is a dangerous spot to set up. The reason is that drainages like this in a wooded area oftentimes are the places where water runs off. So if it starts raining and you're set up in something like that, then it's going to be easy for water to rush over you, which is very dangerous. So you want to get up away from a drainage like that and make sure you get away from the water. So first thing we do is we set up our half hitch on one side, under, down through the hole. Just watch the video earlier so you know how to do that right. Then we bring it over here. And what I like to do when I set up a ridge line is I like to give it some extra grab by pulling it as tight as I can, keeping the tension on it, and then wrapping it around the tree. That's going to help keep tension on it. So again, I take the rope under, same hitch over here, down through, pull that tight, and then under, over, down through that hole, and again, for our purposes here, pull that tight. Now I have a really tight ridge line. All right, so we already have one Prusik on our rope. Let's go ahead and tie this other one on. And again, this is the same knot I did before. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times through the middle. Cinch everything up. Now we have 2 Prusiks. Let me show you how we're going to do this with the tarp. So tarps are going to have loops on them that you can tie to, or they're going to have grommets. So let's take a look at how we're going to do this. We're again just going to utilize the Prusik and a half hitch on the bottom of it. So I take that through, take it under, down through the hole, under, down through the hole. And I pull that tight, just like we did to the tree before. Now let's do that on the other one. Take that around the loop, under, down through the hole, under, down through the hole. Pull that tight. Now here's the cool part about this. Remember how we could cinch it out and it would get tight? Now our tarp is tight. We can tie this off, but we don't really have to. Now what we want to do is we want to figure out what we want to do with staking this down in the back. So let me get some more cordage. I'm going to use half hitches again, a couple of stakes, and I'll show you how to do this as well. All right, stakes are fairly easy to find. Sometimes you can pick up stakes or sticks and they just break real easy. It's probably not going to make a good stake. So you want something that when you squeeze it, it takes some effort to break it. Yeah, these two will work pretty good. And then I'll show you what to do with the tarp. This is real easy to do. So I just take my cordage. Again, I'm going to do 2 half hitches again. Through, under, down through, under, down through. You can see why I really like that half hitch, don't you? Works a lot. I get my first stake and I pull it out until I see that my tarp is tight. And this is really important, this next step. I kind of guess about half the length of my rope, and I don't want to put my stake in line with this portion of the tarp, and I don't want to put it in line with this portion of the tarp. I want to make it 45 degrees here. Now, you'll probably want to see some people that stick a stake right down through the loop. Don't do that. That never stays very well at all. If that's all you've got, then use that. But if you can, use cordage. It acts like a shock absorber. So again, I pull this out at 45. I angle this away from the tarp. Sometimes I will push it in a circle to get it down in there. Now watch what I do. It's just like tying the ridge line. I pull the tension on that, wrap it around, under, down through the hole, and then under, down through the hole. Now we're going to go do that on the other side. So again, same thing over here, you all. Half hitches, under, down through the hole, under, down through the hole. Half hitches are so easy. Pull that tight. And this is going to be easier to see now that everything's tighter. I don't want this stake to be on this line, and I don't want it to be on this line. I want it to be coming off here at 45-degree angle, about halfway out to where my rope goes. Once we get this started in the ground, what we want is to have pressure going down, and sometimes you have to make a little circle too, and that helps gets it down in the ground. If you're having trouble, then what you can do is pick up any wood that's bigger, and you can use this basically like a hammer. Once you get it down in there, take your cordage. Again, I like to wrap it to keep it tight. I then take it, get this out of the way and make it easier for you to see. Under, down through the hole. Under, down through the hole. Now take a look. We got a nice tarp set up. Now, you remember I said we look up, we look for dead stuff. We look down, we got the dead sticks away. We made sure there wasn't poison ivy on the ground. We made sure that we weren't laying in water. Now, why do we look left and right? Here's why. Wind is always going to blow left or right, more often than not. Whenever I set a tarp up, which I've already done here, I want to make sure if the wind is blowing a certain direction, it's blowing on the back side of my shelter. I don't want the wind blowing in on the front side, and that's where I'm going to be because that'll cool me off. Now, in the summertime, I probably want the wind on me, remember? But in the wintertime, I want to stay warm, so I don't want that wind blowing on me. So let's go around the front, take a look at that, and I'll show you how we've got it set up and why it's important. Now, this particular tarp setup, I did just to show you some things. But I have loops that are in the middle of the tarp, and so I have actually the corners are hanging down. So I can tie this off to the tree if I wanted to. I could also, if the trees were farther apart, I could tie my Prusiks up here and pull the whole tarp. But because I'm by myself, you can tell this is plenty of room. Matter of fact, I think this is big enough for 4 people to get into rather easily. But if I needed some more space, I could tie those all the way out. What we want to do in here is we don't want to lay directly on the ground if we're trying to stay warm. If we're trying to stay warm, we want to gather as many leaves as we can. If you'll remember in the essential gear lesson, I talked about a garbage bag full of leaves. We can lay that down in here as a mattress. We can gather leaves. If we had a pack, we can sit on the pack. We can do a lot of things in here to keep us from laying directly on the ground. What we're not going to be able to do in this video, because I'm going to do it in a bonus video for you, so be looking for it, is we could actually build a fire right out here that would help put heat into this tarp setup as well. But we're going to have a separate video just for fire building, so be watching for that too. Now, it's not raining right now, so I can touch the tarp. It's not a problem, but you need to keep this in mind. If you're in a tarp setup like this, or in a hammock, or you're in a tent, whatever it might be, you don't want to touch the outer surface of whatever shelter you're in. When it's raining, basically what that does is it creates a conduit. It allows water to come down through, so we don't want to touch this with our hand, our head, and when we stack our gear around in here, if we had a lot of gear in a tent or a hammock, we don't want that laying up next to the tarp either. because that creates a conduit and you wake up and all your stuff is wet, and you do not want your stuff to get wet. All right, now what happens if you don't have anything? You don't have any supplies at all. Well, you're going to have to make a shelter out here as best you can. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to find a tree like this that's fallen down. Make sure that it's stable enough that it'll stay here, like push on it, and it's not going to result in it falling down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pile up leaves underneath of this right here and get underneath of it. The reason I'm going to do that is that if it's raining, this will shed a lot of the water. The water will hit this and not hit me laying on the ground. If I've got leaves piled up, then that keeps me insulated from laying down on the cold ground, the wet ground. I can pile leaves in there. And it stops the wind from hitting me. Even better, if I can take other limbs and lay them here like ribs, or lay other logs right here and just simply get up underneath what we see right here. Because again, this is going to give me shelter when I don't have anything at all. But let's talk about something that's vitally important to doing this. Now, you may remember me saying, if you get lost in a wilderness area like this, the best thing for you to do is to literally sit down and stop. Stop, think, observe, plan, and actively stay alive. Part of the reason you do that is that somebody is going to come searching for you. That's why it's important to tell somebody where you're going, when you expect to return home, and who you're going with. That way, if you don't show up when you're supposed to, search and rescue comes looking for you. Now, think about it. You're up underneath this log. You're almost hiding from them, even though you're not purposely doing it. That's why I'm a big fan of having something that is brightly colored, whether it's a bandana or a little small bag like this, or something that when you get underneath there, you can put it on top of where you are, you can tie it up into a tree, you can do anything where at least something bright is above you. So when people see this, a search and rescue person see this, it actually draws their attention, and they may come this direction, or they may yell your name, and that way you can answer them, because you're not going to be in trouble. Search and rescue is there to help you. So if they're yelling your name, you need to go to them, all right? Listen and do what they tell you to do. But this is going to help them find you. So that's it. That's how you basically take your home with you when you go outside. Being outside is really good for you. It's really good for me. That's why I like spending so much time in a wilderness setting, in a city park, wherever it might be. The goal, though, is to make sure that you maintain your core body temperature. So don't forget, the first line of defense is the clothes you have on. Then if you can take something, take that garbage bag that we talked about in essential gear, take that tarp if you have one, and if you don't have any of that at all and you find yourself out here and you need to stay the night, then you can do what we did with a natural shelter as best that you can. That way you can maintain your core body temperature, search and rescue will find you, or you can spend the night outside and then you'll feel a lot better the next morning. Come on, join in. Let's learn together.
If you would like to be entered to win one of Craig Caudill's books, email the correct answer to this question to Les Lehman at lehman@jesspублib.org. Why do you want to avoid touching the inside of a tarp that has been put up to protect you during a rainstorm? Thanks for watching. Check out the JCPL YouTube channel for more videos in this series.